Oh, good morning. You know, I was just remembering 18 years ago when I was standing here. It was February 1st, 2003, and I just accepted the call to be your new minister. There was so much love in this room, and there was so much possibilities and so much beauty, and it was an amazing experience, and I was so grateful. And it's hard to believe 18 years later I'm still standing here. You know, the average across the world of a minister being in the same place is 5 years. And when I was hired, Rick Heldorfer said to me, can you beat the average? And I'm like, give me a challenge and I'll do it. So I'm really grateful I beat the average, and I'm just grateful for all the years that I've had with so many different people. My first talk was called Be Bold. Some of you were here then. Some of you have heard it because every year I remember it. And I don't remember many titles, but I remember that one. And bold stood for beauty, order, love, and divinity. And so our first job was to create some beauty here at the center. And within a year, we remodeled the lobby. And then we remodeled the sanctuary and built a new stage. And we've repainted, and we're always in the process of beautifying the center. And then order, we created some systems and attracted people that knew how to use systems and make up systems, and that's been creating our order. And love, everybody that walks in here is touched by love because they bring love in. And if they come in and they're having a bad day, they take love out, because that's why we're here. It's been written, God is love, and I really believe that if nothing else, we just live from love and we can transform this planet. And then D was divinity, remembering that every face I see is the face of the divine. There's somebody that took that saying and made all the eyes I see are the eyes of the divine with a mask on. So we're looking at people's eyes, and when we do, we can just see the essence of spirit, that divine energy. So today, I think it's appropriate that my title is called Clearing Out Hell So Heaven Can Reign. Because sometimes we have forgotten who we are, and we think that we live in a hell. And we don't. We can clear that out and allow the heaven. And Dr. Ernest Holmes says that we can bring heavenly ideas and heavenly truths to everything that we've done, a deeper truth. And that the heavenly ideas are really where we want to live from. And a heavenly idea is one filled with love. There was a story about this junior church. And these kids were asked by the teacher, how are you going to get to heaven? And she said, if you donate all your money to charity and you help those that have nothing, well, then you get to heaven? And the kids went, no. The teacher was a little shocked, and she said, well, what if you are nice to everybody in the neighborhood and you gave them gifts of candy? Would you get to heaven then? And the kids went, no, not then. And then the teacher said, well, what do you need to do to get to heaven? And little Johnny in the back said, you have to die first. And Dr. Ernest Holmes actually in this teaching said that we do have to die to old ideas. We have to die to who we used to be. And he actually talks about two things that we have to die to so that we can live in heaven. And the two things are fear and blame. Because when we're in fear and we're in blame, we are living in hell. We have forgotten who we are. So when we let go of fear, like Pope John Paul once said, heaven is neither an abstraction nor a physical place in the clouds, but a living and personal relationship of union with the Holy Trinity. And he said, there's another quote from that said, if you let go of your fear of hell, and hell was called Gehenna, and it was a pit outside of Jerusalem where they threw all their trash in, and it was always burning. So they would say to people and little children, I probably would have if I lived in that time, and maybe I lived in that time. We would say, if you don't shape up, you're going to go to Gehenna, which translate as hell. Have any of you ever threatened anybody with that? No. Have you ever been in a church that did? If you didn't follow the rules, you're going to end up going to hell. Well, that's not what we're like here. Our intention is to allow you to recognize what heaven is and that you can live in heaven and you have choice to let go of hell. So what Pope John Paul said, hell is not a punishment imposed externally by God, but the condition resulting from attitudes and actions which people adopt in this life. More than a physical place, hell is the state of those who freely and definitely separate themselves from God, the source of all life and joy. Now, that is a very metaphysical explanation of heaven and hell by Pope John Paul. You know, you can learn from anyone. Sometimes you have to learn what's below what they say otherwise to begin learning. So if we're going to let go of fear, Course in Miracles said there's only two emotions, love and fear. That if you're not living in fear, you're living in love. But if you want to let go fear, there's a story told by Mary Mannon Morrissey about her daughter Jenny. Her daughter Jenny was 4 years old, and she was immensely afraid of water. And they would take Jenny to the swimming pool, and she would not get in the water. Or if they made her get in, her knuckles were white from holding on to the side of the swimming pool. She was like deathly afraid. I cannot go in that water. I cannot go in that water. Don't make me go in the water. And she'd cry and she'd scream. And so every once in a while when they went back swimming, they'd say, Jenny, you want to try it again? No, I'm afraid. She wouldn't get in the water. And her mother, Reverend Mary Mannon Morrissey, said, what if you let go of that fear? What if you stepped through the fear? And what if you just decided that you're going to do it? So one day they go to the swimming pool, and little Jenny said, today's the day. I am still afraid, but I'm going to do it anyway. And she got in the pool. And from that day on, she learned how to swim because she let go of that fear. So how many of you are willing to have a fear, acknowledge the fear, and let it go and say, I'm going to do it anyway? Yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to walk through my fear. I'm going to let it go because fear keeps you in hell. You know that feeling if you're really afraid? That's not heaven. Because heaven is when you have freedom. When you live in fear, you're lacking freedom. There's some things you can't do because you're so afraid. I know in my life, when there's something the only thing I have not done is skydive. And I don't think I'm going to try it now, but I used to say it's the only thing I was afraid of. But I did go up in a hot air balloon a few times. And so I know what it's like to go really high and you're not anchored to anything and you're just floating. So I look at what am I afraid of? And if I'm afraid of something, I work to go past it. So I'm not stuck. I'm not like little Jenny white knuckling it on the edge of a swimming pool. How is fear preventing you from living? How is it preventing you from living on heaven on earth? So we can actually all say together, I've got the power. I've got the power. Let's say it together. I've got the power. See, we have the power to work through it. I've got the power because that divine is who we are. Let's say it again. I've got the power. I've got the power. And when we have that power, things can just come and go. We aren't stuck. We're not in fear. Think of something that you have had that you have been afraid of and that you walked through it and you're no longer afraid and you realize, I've got the power. Some people say that public speaking is one of the most fearful things in the world. I remember the very first time I did any public speaking. Now, I had heard this, but I thought, oh, it's not going to be me. I can talk to my friends. I have no problem talking. And so I was invited to do an announcement in 1978 was the first time I got on stage. And I got on stage to do an announcement because I took over the junior church at the church in Seattle, Washington, because nobody would do it anymore. They all quit. And I had 2 kids, so I said, okay, I'll be the director. And they said, good, get up and announce teachers to help you. So I got up there, and my knees were totally shaking. My hands were shaking. The whole room was black except for one little, like, picture hole of people. I maybe could see 2 people. I didn't have a clue who anybody was. I was very new at the church. And all of a sudden, I'm like, if you want to be a junior church director and work with me, please sign up on the form in the lobby. And I left the stage. I went out the back door. I leaned up against the wall and went, oh my God, what was that? What was that? That was what some people experience, and they never speak again in public. It was traumatic, but it didn't stop me. So the next time I did it again, I had to speak at a wedding. Somebody's like, oh, we want you to read this poem at a wedding. I'm thinking, reading a poem's no big deal. I can do it. And I got up there again. My legs shook, my hands shook, and I'm reading this poem. And I could see a few more people. The rest of the room was still black, but I could see a few more. I thought, I don't know, Spirit. What do you want from me? Should I just let go of being on the stage? I'm willing to follow the divine impulse. What is it? Well, other opportunities came up, and I just kept saying yes until you see me up here now, a few years later. It took a while to get through it, though, but I didn't give up. I said, okay, Spirit, if that's what you want me to do, I'm allowing you to guide me to my greater good. I feel like I was pulled. And then I feel like, some days I was pushed. Get up there. And then before I went in it to apply at this church, I went and did a visioning with Michael Beckwith. And in the visioning, I saw me up here speaking, and before they used to have these kind of rubber plants all along the floor, and I remember in the visioning I was speaking and there were no rubber plants, and the place just filled with love. And I thought, okay, I guess that's the sign that I am going to apply. It didn't mean I was going to take it. It just meant I'm doing this one step at a time. I'll apply. And so I applied to be the minister here at the Center for Spiritual Living. And then I went through this interview process, and I did a talk, and I did a workshop, and people graded me, and they were deciding between 2 people who they wanted. And Linda Joy was back there going, we want her! And as I would walk out, people would say, oh, you're our next minister. And I'm like, wait a minute. Only if it's for the highest good of this congregation. Only if it's for my highest good. And Diane Grayson said, well, I know it's for our highest good. But it's stepping through the fear and feeling it and doing it anyway. Or I would not be standing here today if I had have taken a blackened room, shaky knees, sweaty palms as a sign I shouldn't be speaking. But I walked through that, and here I am. So there's this story of this little girl that was lost in the woods for a few days. And when they found her, they said, "Oh my God, weren't you scared to death?" She said, "No, I just sat here. I wasn't alone." They said, "What do you mean you weren't alone? God was with me." "What do you mean God was with you?" "Wherever I am, God is." I learned that in junior church. And she was fine. So what if we learned that? Wherever I am, God is. No matter what I'm doing, no matter if I'm stuck in a situation I don't like or if I'm creating something new, wherever I am, God is. That gets you over your fear very quickly, doesn't it? I can't even imagine being outside for 2 days, just sitting there, meditating on wherever I am, God is, until I was found. But that little girl could do it because they taught her in junior church. Wherever I am, God is. So that's our first lesson, is letting go of any kind of fear. So the second one is we begin letting go of blame. Oh my gosh. You either you show up with blaming or you show up taking responsibility. Some people know the song, "I Am Responsible." And it begins letting go of blame. George Bernard Shaw once said, "Liberty means responsibility. That's why most men dread it so." And a minister named David Owen Ritz said, "Whatever we experience in life, we either create, promote, allow, or step in." So you've got to memorize this. Create, promote, allow, or step in. That's our life. That's what we experience in life. And when we blame something, we become a victim. If we believe that somebody else did it to us, we're then a victim of somebody else. It's sort of like the Old West used to have movies, and people would watch the movies when it first came out, and they'd be fighting on the screen, and the cowboy was so mad at the screen that he got up and he shot bullets into the screen, thinking he would stop what was going on. And in our own life, sometimes we do that. That's what blame is, shooting bullets at a screen. And yet the truth is we should shoot bullets at the projector. We are the projector. We're projecting it all on a screen. And sometimes we just look at the screen and we blame it. Oh my gosh, who could have done that? Oh my gosh, if it's their fault. Whenever I hear somebody, even on TV, kind of like blaming somebody else, as if when it's their fault also, it's real easy to hear now. Oh my God, so-and-so who's really involved is blaming so-and-so who is also involved. And then I think, when am I blaming somebody for something I'm involved in? It's being aware and being conscious. The first thing you have to do is to be aware. Then you can hear yourself blaming, and then you can stop and say, I let it go. Change thoughts. I'm no longer blaming. There was this man in 2009. He was from Oregon State University, and his name was Andrew Smith. He was a graduate of the university. And one day he was doing an experiment, and what he was doing was heating manganese oxide to high temperatures and exploring its electronic properties. And what emerged from the furnace was a brilliant blue compound. And they decided that brilliant blue compound was another paint color. And a paint color hadn't been discovered in like 100 years. And they call it Oregon blue. It's very rare because you have to heat that up to a certain point to have this beautiful blue color. And when they kept saying, oh my gosh, it's something new. And the truth is, what Andrew knew is that it wasn't new. It was just God's idea of a color that hadn't been revealed. So when something happens in your life, it's like I get to reveal the divine in me in the perfect relationship, in the perfect job, with the right amount of money, with loving friends. So what you're doing is revealing that truth of who you are. You're revealing that power of God within. So that new color, which is called Yinmen blue, but it's also Oregon blue. That's a little bit easier. It was the first shade of blue discovered in 200 years. Can you imagine? From an experiment. And so we have to realize from the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. It's what in us that guides us, that moves us forward, that leads us into something greater. It's what's in us that allows us to transform this planet. It's what's in us. So today, we have the opportunity to remember, what are the two qualities we're going to let go of? Fear and blame. Let go of fear and blame, which keeps you in hell, and then you get to realize what? Heaven and love. So then you're walking around knowing life is divine. And when people say, oh my God, you were such an amazing person, you always remember to love. You are so thoughtful, you're so kind, you're so generous. What do you say to them? I learned that at the Center for Spiritual Living. I learned it there, and that's who I am. I'm this power and presence of spirit. I've awakened to my magnificence. I'm living in heaven. So every day I want you this week to get up and say, wow, I live in heaven. Because every day you make that choice. Like I've always said, when you wake up every day, you make a choice to love that day. When you wake up in the morning, you make a choice to live in heaven. And all of a sudden, if you're living in fear, you go, stop, get away hell, I'm bringing heaven. You begin blaming, let that go, and bring in heaven. For you are here to demonstrate heaven on earth. I hope in my 18 years on this journey with me, a lot of you have been around a long time. Ann Gavin, I want to acknowledge her. 18 years ago was the first day she came to this center. The first day I spoke. She's in a nursing home right now, but I send her my love and blessings. And I also want to acknowledge 20 years ago, Tracy and David got married. Yay! So you've been married 2 years longer than I've been the minister here. So, okay, my goal is to at least make 2 more years so I can be even with you. Definitely. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being part of my life. You're special. You're amazing. And I love you. God bless you. Okay. Marcia.